Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Osasu Show. Happy Democracy Day. It's Friday, June 12th, and we'll be speaking to Chief Dele Momodu about the role of media as gatekeepers of our democracy. What can we do to further the tenets and deepen Nigeria's democracy? Don't go anywhere. It promises to be a very educative interview. Welcome back to the Osasu Show. Joining me now is Chief Dele Momodu to discuss the role of media in deepening the tenets of our democracy. Welcome to the program, Chief Dele Momodu.
Thank you, my very dear sister, and how are you today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Happy Democracy Day.
Yes, happy Democracy Day to you and to your crew and to all Nigerians.
Thank you so much. You played a fundamental role with your media platform on the June 12th, 1993. Can you talk to me about the role that you played?
Well, I was one of the media campaigners for Chief Mike-Bamiloye, who was the flag bearer of the Social Democratic Party, the SDP, at the time, and who we believed won the election. I don't think there was any doubt about that. And I was not in Nigeria when the whole saga started, because Chief Abiola had sent me to Vienna, Austria, to represent him and to deliver a goodwill message to Chief Ganifa Wehime, who was receiving the Bruno Kreski Award that day on June 11th. So I was not even in Nigeria on June 12th. I left London on June 12th, and I left Vienna on June 12th to London. And then on June 13th, I called the Concord newspapers in Nigeria owned by Chief Mike-Bamiloye. And they told us that from the results they were collating from their own field officers, that Chief was coasting home to victory, and that they are hoping that all the results will be ready by Monday. So on Monday morning, I put a call through to Lagos, and I spoke with the publisher of this day newspaper, Prince Nduka Obagbena, who said he's been trying to reach me. In those days, we didn't have mobile phones like now in 1993. So he said he's been looking for me, and that I should try and reach Chief Mike-Bamiloye urgently, because he's going to win the election, but the military will not give it to him. I've never heard anything like that in my life. So I started arguing with him. I said that is not possible. If he wins, he wins. That there is nothing the military can do. In retrospect, maybe we took a lot of things for granted at that stage. So Chief Wehime flew in from Vienna that 14th on Monday. He flew into London, and I told him what Nduka had mentioned to me, and Chief said it is not possible, and that if that happens, then the military will have a tough fight in their hands. To cut a long story short, we departed London, I think, on the 16th, so must have been a Wednesday. And while at Gatwick Airport, message reached us that the military had stopped the counting of the election results. And that was like they were preparing for the eventual annulment. So we got back to Nigeria, and the struggle started from there. And of course, I was a part of that struggle. All I had was my pen, and I started firing from all cylinders till July, from that June to July, end of July, when the police from force headquarters invaded my home in the morning and took me away. And I was kept in Alagbon Detention Center, where I was told that I had written some seditious things. Well, I didn't know the meaning of sedition because, according to my lawyers, they no longer existed. But that's what I was charged for eventually at the magistrate court. And after that, of course, we continued campaigning for the revalidation of the election results. Chief Abiola himself went global. In fact, I was in detention when Chief Abiola took off and went abroad. I was one of those who believed that he should not come back, that it's better for him to stay alive and by staying abroad, and then he can have his foot soldiers on ground in Nigeria. But some people thought otherwise, that he should come back. I believe that the military actually tricked him into coming back to Nigeria. They promised him that they will have to flush out the Babangida guys in the army and then pave the way for him. And that was how General Sani Abacha skillfully maneuvered his way to power. Because there is no way a civilian can take power without the backing of the Nigerian army. It is virtually impossible. Of course, that President Babangida left hurriedly. He said he was stepping aside, and he handed over to Chief Ernest Shoneko, who headed the interim government. But that government was terminated within 3 months, and in November, General Sani Abacha took over. And it became immediately obvious that he had come for power. He had not come to hand over power back to Chief Abiola.
Chief Dele Momodu, you are truly a reservoir of knowledge. That's why I consider it a great privilege to be speaking with you. You are a media icon that has paved the way for journalists such as myself. You've spoken about the detention in which you suffered during, the time of you speaking out against the injustice meted out against Chief MKO Abiola, late Chief MKO Abiola. But what has changed from 93 till date? In 21 years, we've been practicing democracy. What has changed, in terms of those of us who have been using our platforms to propagate peace, to propagate deepening our democracy? What really has changed? Has anything changed?
It's a very difficult question to answer. But the way I'll put it is that the military has been in charge since then, even in this era of so-called democracy. And I will give you practical examples. When General Abdulsalami Abubakar was going to hand over power in 1999, he handed over power to a retired army general, General Olusegun Obasanjo, who spent 8 years and left in 2007 and handed over power to President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, who was a brother of another retired Major General, Shehu Musa Yar'Adua. But he died in office, so by accident, we then have Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, who was his vice president, by accident. So underline the word accident. He was the first minority person to take power fully, and then, of course, he contested and he won, but immediately now we sacked him in 2015. And then who took over power again? Another military general, Major General Muhammadu Buhari. So if you look at it, the only stopgap we had in reality and by accident was Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. So we don't know what will happen next, but Nigeria is still largely controlled by the military mafia. And until the military mafia decides on maybe they will hands off Nigeria, I don't know how that will happen. Our democracy will still be a pseudo-democracy and a semi-military democracy.
You said something very integral, Chief Dele Momodu. You said we sacked him. You sacked the only truly democratic president elected in Nigeria. As a media practitioner who has suffered the brunt of military rule, why did you do this? And what do you think the effects were on the Nigerian people?
By the time Jonathan was president, PDP had been in power for 16 years. You understand? And you should know about the loss of diminishing returns. So a lot of Nigerians were already tired of PDP. They believed that the profligacy of PDP was out of this world. And as they say, the voice of the people is the voice of God. An average Nigerian believed that the biggest problem bedeviling Nigeria was the issue of corruption, and that PDP had taken corruption to a different level. So it was that move that paved the way for Nigerians to say they needed a saint in inverted commas. So they needed a saint to come and cleanse the system. Nigerians need to know that nations are not governed by saints. Nations are governed by performance. That is what we should always watch out for. First, there is nowhere in the world where saints are in power. I think that is what led to the emergence. It was this, our obsession with having a saint who will chase away all the looters, who will kill all the enemies of Nigeria. I think that is what gave us that mindset, that yes, the best man for the job will be a military. And don't forget the general insecurity in the land, the issue of Boko Haram. You know, it was getting so bad, especially when those innocent girls, the Chibok girls, suddenly disappeared. And it seemed that the government initially was very reticent about finding them. There was so much confusion. And again, Nigerians believe that a military general will be able to come and obliterate Boko Haram almost immediately, almost magically. And of course, General Momodu was able to fit that bill. So if you look at the situation of things at the time, the mood favored a change. And of course, the only change that could have come will come from the other party, the opposition.
Chief, it seems to me that in summary what you're saying goes back to the popular rhetoric that those who don't learn from history are bound to repeat it. Again, I ask that you were at the brunt, you were at the receiving end of military dictatorship. Yet, I understand what you're saying, that the majority of Nigerians wanted a change. That's why you threw your support behind the incumbent president, Muhammadu Buhari. However, moving forward, as media practitioners, media executives, as gatekeepers of our democracy, what do we do to now deepen this democracy, or as according to you, this pseudo-democracy we're practicing in Nigeria? What do we do to improve the current state? How do we stop ourselves from making historical mistakes that have played out for far too long?
Unfortunately, human beings are bound to repeat mistakes. That is why they always say history repeats itself. I don't think there is any guarantee yet that we're not going to make the same mistake, because, as I said, in a democracy, only the two top parties usually produce the winner. Nigeria tried a third force recently. I told Mr. Donald Duke, for example, when he said he wanted to represent a third force, I told him it would not fly. Nigeria has not. Don't forget that when you combine illiteracy, mass illiteracy, ignorance, you combine it with mass and abject poverty, it's a deadly combination. So the problem with Nigeria is that Nigerians themselves are not very aware yet of how to liberate from themselves from servitude, from oppression, from diseases, from famine, and from general incompetence. We don't have people will still go and queue up, they will still collect 1,000 naira and vote for wrong candidate. The last election, if you look at me, for example, I use myself as an example. In 1999, I supported Chief Olufalaye because I didn't want to hear anything about military. I supported Chief Olufalaye against Chief Obasanjo. But what happened? The owners of Nigeria, as we call them, the Nigerian mafia, preferred Obasanjo to Olufalaye. My own reasoning was, well, Olufalaye was a full-blown civilian. He was an ex-banker, an economist, and everything. I believe that his temperament would have suited the purpose of Nigeria, and I expected, because I was in discussions with him, and I expected that he would be able to create a social welfare system for Nigeria. Because a country like Nigeria, a country as poor and impoverished as Nigeria, needed a social welfare system that would be able to create. But what did we have? We had a full-blown capitalism, and you cannot have capitalism without capital. Nigeria cannot sustain capitalism because we lack the capital. We want to have American presidential system that is largely flamboyant, very grandiloquent, everything is big. We talk big, we act big, we waste money and resources on sustaining the politicians instead of sustaining projects. Do you understand? So I believe that Nigerians are still likely to make the same mistake because somebody will come next time and say, oh no, the only way to go is that you must have saints, you must have clean people who are the progressive. But the truth of the matter is that there is no difference between the political parties, especially the top two for now. That's why it's so easy for people to crisscross. You can wake up in the morning in APC and go to bed in the evening with PDP. So we don't have that philosophy and ideology of saying, yes, these are the programs we want to pursue. I wanted to do that. It didn't happen.
With all this in mind, Chief Dele Momodu, what role does the media play? It seems to me that we haven't even properly defined what democracy means to us as a nation. It seems we're just copying and pasting what we see in other nations, and that's the reason why it hasn't worked. So how does the media define democracy for our citizens, and how do we then go ahead to uphold the tenets of this democracy for each and every single citizen, irrespective of social class?
The way I love to put it, always, is that the media or journalists are not the lambs of God who take away the sins of the earth. The media is part of society, and part of the job of the media is to mirror reality. The media cannot force people to take a position, but we can influence them. That's how it is, and that's what we've done. For example, again, let me speak about myself. I believe that the APC did not show a capacity for the change that they promised when they came in 2016. And after a few interactions and interventions and writing columns upon columns, writing open letters to the president, and I could see that nothing was changing. Of course, I believed I had to try the next person. And the next person that PDP produced was Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough firepower because the other people already had their own template by which they were going to win the election. They controlled INEC, they controlled the military, We saw the rehearsal from Osun State. We saw what happened in Osun. And we all raised alarm that this is no longer democracy. If people cannot choose freely and where you have to twist not just the voters, but you are twisting even the military, you had so many police officers, and yet some people would not be allowed to exercise their franchise. They couldn't even go near the voting place once they identified you as a member of opposition. And so this is what Nigerians need to do, and this is what the media now has to do more by educating the people that you must take your destiny in your hands. Everywhere in the world, look at just one gentleman was killed in America. See the way it has affected the whole world. Nigerians are their own worst enemies. People will say, oh, if you go out, they will shoot you. You see, there is no way we are going to have freedom from oppression, from slavery, unless some people are willing to make the necessary sacrifice. Some of us tried. That's why we ended up in prison, and at the risk to our lives, some of us escaped to exile, but we still didn't stop fighting. But there must get to a stage in life where Nigerians, it's unfortunate, you see, because we're supposed to have a system of checks and balances. Unfortunately, I believe that the National Assembly has become the new bride of the executive. The judiciary is the first bride. In fact, what has happened is a rape of the judiciary, where the judiciary is afraid for its own life. This is part of the thing. But the day we have politicians who are ready to represent their people truly in the National Assembly, where the judiciary is fully independent, it will be difficult for any rigger to rig elections and go to the courts to validate the election.
I'm sure you would agree with me that not much has changed from your time in the 90s when journalists were arrested for publishing op-eds and speaking, for the people on national television. A recent example was Samuel Gundikbe of Premium Times, who is currently in exile because he published the internal memo between the NSA, Director NSA, and former Chief of Staff to the President, Abakari, which was basically saying that he has no power to summon the security chiefs. And now that journalist that revealed that document, which is purposeful for national consumption, is in hiding. So we see that even when we as media practitioners are trying to use our platform to invoke change, to further the tenets of our democracy, our lives, our safety is at risk. So what can we do in our space, given the reality of the situation on ground? We are not America. There truly isn't free press in this country. So what can we do within the confines of our laws and the current situation in which we find ourselves?
We're in a state of lawlessness. That's why I told you that the problem is that the structures that are supposed to hold government and the executive recklessness in check, those structures have been crippled, if not totally exterminated. So, what do? We pray that we don't end up in the state of anarchy, because no matter what happens, even slave trade must end one day. Slaves must get freedom one day. And that's why you find a lot of people crying about restructuring, because in Nigeria, it seems there are different sets of rules for different sets of people. Those of us who talk, we've had to talk at huge risk. I tell you, we are like kamikaze journalists, people who are ready to damn the consequence. And it is because some of us decided that, look, to hell, if I cannot get government patronage, so be it. Unfortunately, because of my exile years, we also established ourselves in other places. So if my country does not want me, then I have somewhere else that wants me. So that is what is happening. A lot of journalists in Nigeria dare not do some of the things that we have had to do. It's unfortunate.
That's a fine place to leave it, Chief Dele Momodu. Thank you so much for your time. We wish you continuous safety and good health, and we hope you will exceed when next we call on you to join the Osasu show.
Always, anytime for you, my dear sister, anytime. The Osasu show has been fabulous, and I follow you religiously. Congratulations on a good job.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Thank you so much. That's it for today's program. Do follow us on social media at The Osasu Show, at TOS TV Network, at The Osasu Show Foundation, and at Osasu Igbinadian on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. To read news on sustainable development and current affairs across Africa, visit our website, www.tostvnetwork.com. I'll see you same time, same place next week, and until then, take very good care of yourself, and happy Democracy Day.
TOS TV Network mobile app is now available. You can now catch up on our breaking news, stream our programs live, watch out for the latest update on sports and politics as they unfold. You can also get notifications for our upcoming programs and events. All these on our TOS TV Network mobile app, available on Apple Store and Google Play Store. TOS TV News from Africa by Africans.